It was a full-scale raid. Federal Homeland Security, with the help of local law enforcement, executing 2 searches in 2 cities at the same time. 2 sprawling luxury mansions belonging to one of the most successful hip-hop moguls in the world, Sean Diddy Combs. Federal authorities say the searches are part of an ongoing sex trafficking investigation. The impact of this was immediate, an explosion on social media and in the news. Then the big question, where's Diddy? His lawyer criticized this enormous show of force and proclaimed Diddy's innocence. But this is not the first time his name has been associated with allegations of sex trafficking. In February, Diddy was sued civilly by a producer known as Lil Rod, Rodney Jones, who worked on Diddy's 2023 release entitled The Love Album, Off the Grid. In his suit, Jones makes claims of being sexually assaulted by Diddy and being groomed by Diddy to be passed off to his friends, including Cuba Gooding Jr. Diddy has denied all the allegations. Tonight, we get the latest in this ongoing investigation, then take a look at Diddy's reputation and what would cause this type of alleged behavior. And then we'll look at the legal road ahead for Diddy as we speak with R. Kelly's former lawyer as we investigate the allegations against Diddy. I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. This story is huge. It is absolutely huge. The explosion on social media. Everyone is talking about it. People are digging up old videos, looking at them in a different way, and trying to figure out what's going on here. But I want to start tonight talking about another story. And this is a story that never ends. The story of Jeffrey Epstein. And when he first got in trouble, it really wasn't a big deal because no one knew who he was. He wasn't a celebrity by any means, just a really rich guy who seemed to get and slither his way out of getting into real trouble the first time around. But then things got much more serious for him, and there were civil lawsuits, and then finally real charges and a real criminal investigation. And despite the fact that Jeffrey Epstein is no longer alive, that story's not ending because of who he was, the level of power, money, and influence, and people that he associated with. And there are still questions tonight about this story and this case. And the bottom line, when you think of Jeffrey Epstein, I mean, this guy was a weird billionaire. That's who he was. He's a freak. Also a predator. But like strange, very, very strange, and lived in some really like bizarre fantasy world that no one would ever want to be a part of, no normal person would want to be a part of, but he created it for himself. And when you think about who he was and what he did, you wonder if all along the motivation to obtain that level of power was to be able to do what he was doing, acting as a predator and seemingly being able to do it for years without being bothered, without being touched. Just plow ahead with your money, power, and influence and connections. And was that the motivating factor that drove him to his financial success? Did it play a role in all of it? Like, is that why? Is that why? Or did he become wealthy and then get weird? It's hard to say, but it's something we're going to talk about tonight. Because what we're talking about is this raid now on the homes of Sean Diddy Combs. And from my perspective, this is just the beginning of this story. You know, from the legal perspective in a criminal investigation, it's the beginning. It's a search for an ongoing investigation. That's what we've been told. But, you know, there have been civil lawsuits. And when there are civil lawsuits against celebrities with lots of money, obviously we pay attention to them. But oftentimes I look at them, I said, number one, there's never going to be a trial. We know there's going to be some form of a settlement, and everything will be secret. So while I pay attention to them, I don't pay as much attention to civil lawsuits as I do criminal investigations because of the nature of them. But sometimes the two intersect, as in Jeffrey Epstein's case, and as may very well be happening here, because there were a series of civil lawsuits, and there was one in February by Rodney Jones that mentioned and alleges sex trafficking. And then like a month later, there are raids on his homes. Is this a coincidence? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think there's a connection here, an absolute connection, that one can lead to the other. And there's going to be some intersection. So tonight we're going to pay a lot more attention to that civil lawsuit because of the potential nexus to this criminal investigation and this raid, this search and seizure of the property of Sean Diddy Combs. And then we have to look at it and say, well, wait a minute, like with this investigation going, and it can go one way or the other, we understand, it could end up with nothing and no charges, but if this leads to charges and more allegations and people coming forward and witnesses and trials, I mean, are we going to find out, like, is Diddy a weird billionaire? Did he become wealthy? Was this what drove him to his success, to live this type of life that's alleged here in the civil case? Or did all the money and the power put him in a place where all of a sudden he starts doing things that just are way against the norms of society, especially if someone of his level of success? But we've seen it before. So I think these are fair questions that people are asking tonight. But we have to remember where we are. He's not been accused of a crime. He's been sued civilly. There's a search, but there's no indictment, but it is an ongoing investigation connected to the raids on his homes. So let's dig tonight, because one raid's taking place in LA, another one's taking place in Miami. Beautiful homes in both places, but spread out. So we're going to get some help tonight from both cities. Joining me tonight in Miami, Florida, federal court reporter for the Miami Herald, Jay Weaver, is with us, and also joining us in Los Angeles, California, entertainment reporter for the Associated Press, Andrew Dalton. Great to have you both here. Jay, let me begin with you. The big question, I think, first, like, where is Diddy and where was Diddy when all this was happening? What do we know?
Well, both very good questions. Thanks for having me on the show. So, you know, Diddy and his entourage were preparing to leave from Opa-locka Airport. It's a small executive airport in Miami-Dade County, you know, a few miles from the exclusive, you know, Tony World of Star Island, where Diddy owns 2 homes. And at the time that the raid happened, there were 4 staffers, you know, at the home who were escorted out in handcuffs for safety purposes. They cleared the home, they questioned them, they let them go. Simultaneously, over at the airport, there were Homeland Security investigations agents that were, you know, looking at his plane, talking with people in his entourage and talking with him. And they eventually took a look at the airplane, the private chartered airplane, and they ended up finding some cocaine and some cannabis-laced candy. They brought in the local police, the county police, and a guy named Brendan Paul, described as a mule in that lawsuit that you cited in your introduction. And he is a guy that, you know, supposedly has bought drugs and not bought drugs, but distributed drugs and guns for Diddy. And this is according to the allegations in Lil Rod's lawsuit. So Diddy was preparing to leave, to go to Bahamas and then eventually to Antigua with his group, including some family members believed to be his daughters. And that's how it went down. I mean, HSI investigators did talk with him, but they didn't detain him because, this, as you said, is the beginning of an investigation, starting with the search of the home on Star Island. There are 2 homes there, but they only had a search warrant for one of them because the other one didn't have any probable cause related to the crime. Only one of the homes did. And the warrant was for the usual stuff, electronics, things of that nature, and they're looking to build, the foundation of a case, if you will, against him, dealing with allegations of sex trafficking, particularly with minors. I don't think the issue of Diddy, soliciting or hiring adult women or people who are over 18 are going to be such an issue unless he coerced them and threatened them into having sex with him. And that could be problematic, of course, under the law. But I think the greater liability for him is whether there's evidence pointing to his recruiting through his staff or himself or his associates, underage girls and or boys for that matter. And that's really what Homeland Security agents are looking at in Miami and Los Angeles and of course in New York, where the case is being directed by the Southern District of New York.
Andrew, from your perspective, you're out there in Hollywood. Was this, we knew about the lawsuit that had been filed, but was this a surprise to you? And what was the reaction locally? And what details can you tell us about what happened out in Los Angeles?
It did feel just like a huge escalation. These Homeland Security agents that investigate things like, make raids on immigrant houses and on, seek out terrorists and things. So the fact that it was Homeland Security certainly felt like a huge escalation, although most of these lawsuits that have been filed against him, going back to the one from his protege, Cassie, back in November, have been federal lawsuits that alleged some form of sex trafficking. Now, that one in November, which was settled within 24 hours, is the fastest I've ever seen a suit settled, did allege that he trafficked her, but it was a lot of stuff in the past, and the allegations weren't quite so strong. So this one in February from Rodney Jones was the one that was really powerful. Just read like a laundry list of crimes that the feds could investigate. So it was definitely, the news helicopters were over it really quickly here. I mean, it was quite a scene. Diddy and his attorney decried sort of the military-style look of the raid, and it certainly did look that way with this huge command center and, agents in body armor and things like that. So it was a heck of a spectacle in Holmby Hills, which is a part of this wealthy triangle along with Bel Air and Beverly Hills here.
Jay, he has 2 homes now on Star Island, which, is mind-boggling to think of, just having 1 home there, but he's got 2 there, right? How much a part of the community and entourage, and because, Miami is like extremely expensive and popular these days. Is Diddy kind of known as being like part of that city now, or is that relatively a new development?
No. Miami, in deference to Andrew, Miami is a mini LA, and Miami Beach in particular attracts a lot of stars. And Star Island, as it's aptly called, is home to a lot of stars. In fact, one of the homes that Diddy bought more recently in 2021 was a home previously owned by Gloria Estefan and her husband, Emilio. And so, that was the home he bought in 2021. But the one that got raided, he had bought back in 2001. And he, got it for a bargain back then because real estate in Miami wasn't quite as, through the roof as it is today. And so that's where he's been living. That's a resort style home, very spacious, and it has a resort-like feeling, as all the homes do on that island. And, they have beautiful views of Biscayne Bay and, in the city of Miami skyline and Miami Beach, depending on where you're situated on the island. And it's a party crib, basically, to use the, lingo of this world in which he circulates. And, there are obviously drugs, there are obviously guns, there are obviously, a lot of illicit things going on behind closed doors. But in Miami, as in Los Angeles, it's par for the course. And, you know, he's just one of many celebrities who have been hanging out here, from the Miami Vice Don Johnson days to Shaquille O'Neal when he was a Miami Heat center, you know, to Sly Stallone. I mean, even Madonna had a home here at one time. So this is kind of like LA light, if you will. And it's become a little bit more robust in recent years, in the post-COVID years, you know, with the international crowd and the star crowd and all of that. It's not LA, but it does attract its share of celebrities.
Now, the other thing that's happening is, as I mentioned, on social media, you're seeing videos resurfacing. Now, the artist, you know him, Usher, from the Super Bowl, has been tied to Diddy since the start of his career. And in 2016, during an interview with Howard Stern, Usher recounted living with Combs for a year when he was just 13. They called the experience going to Puffy Flavor Camp. Take a listen.
Puffy's place was like just filled with chicks and orgying like nonstop, right?
No, not really. I mean, but hey, it was curious. I got a chance to see some things.
Yeah, but you were 13. What were you seeing?
I went there to see the lifestyle,
right?
And I saw it, and it was, but I don't know if I could indulge and understand what I was even looking at. It was pretty wild.
So nobody tried to, you know, some woman didn't come along.
I didn't say that.
Okay.
I didn't say that. What I did say is that there were very curious things taking place, and I didn't necessarily understand it.
All right. Andrew, let me ask you, is there pressure or is there any chatter about people in that circle, in Diddy's circle, to now speak publicly, you know, one way or the other about him, or is everyone kind of keeping quiet? Because, I mean, this is the story right now.
It absolutely is. I mean, he has a very sort of tight entourage of people loyal to him. And so there hasn't been a lot of chatter from really within his group. It's been people who've passed through, like Usher there, who have talked about him in this way. And, you know, he's done a good job, like a lot of people who sort of come up from the harder edge of rap, and cultivating an image that is a lot more, you know, a lot softer. I mean, he's not on like the Snoop Dogg level where he's doing cooking shows and things like that. You know, he poses more as a businessman. But he's a father of 7 children, you know, several of whom lost their mother a few years ago. And so, you know, that sort of, you know, father CEO image is what he's been able to project the last few years. And this certainly puts a dent in that and has everyone looking, you know, I'm reminded of Harvey Weinstein and every sort of, you know, every look at everything everyone said about him, you know, in the years before, and all these past statements from people and jokes from people suddenly had a lot more resonance.
Absolutely. And Jay, you look at the civil lawsuit, there's a mention of the children in the civil lawsuit.
Right. You know, the thing that's interesting about civil lawsuits, as you said in your preamble to the show, is that, you know, they can be breadcrumbs for prosecutors and investigators. And, you know, what's really striking, in my opinion, of all the lawsuits is the one filed by Lil Rod, because there's a line in there that basically says there's irrefutable evidence of, you know, of Diddy, you know, applying, you know, young women, underage women with alcohol, you know, with alcohol-laced drugs, you know, for the purposes of having sex with them. And, you know, that's a pretty strong accusation. And that's the sort of accusation that is going to catch the eye of investigators. That said, how do you prove that the drinks were laced with drugs? How do you prove, you know, that these women were underage? How do you track them down? There are a lot of loose ends to this case, you know, and the search warrant is going to be an effort to find things like, you know, financial records, payments, video, social media posts, text messages, emails that point to any of this activity to recruit any of these underage women. And then you have to track them down. So, you know, it's going to be weeks and months before we see this case come to fruition, if it does, you know, and there's a big if. You know, the Epstein case had its own zigs and zags, which, you know, I won't digress on because it's a long story. But the reality is, you know, the feds punted on that federal prosecution and gave it to state prosecutors, and they ended up doing a prostitution solicitation case. And it was a scandal eventually, not right away.
Right.
It took years for that scandal to blow up. And it coincided with the Me Too movement. And society changed, culture changed. And so Diddy has the, misfortune, I'm not suggesting this in any kind of defensive way, but he has the misfortune of having these accusations come forward in the aftermath of the Me Too movement.
Absolutely. It was a game changer in all these cases. Andrew, what's the biggest question you have tonight?
Boy, just what's next? I mean, Jay was right that it doesn't necessarily mean anything. I mean, we've seen criminal investigations of so many figures in the Me Too era. Marilyn Manson jumps to mind, where, on a much smaller scale, there were similar raids and similar allegations, and that investigation, while not closed yet, doesn't seem to be leading anywhere. So what have they got, I guess, is the biggest question.
All right. Great information tonight. I'm glad we had both coasts covered here. Jay Weaver down in Miami, Andrew Dalton, AP, Jay Weaver with the Miami Herald, and Andrew obviously out in LA. Thank you both so much. Really do appreciate it. When we come back, we're going to go through that civil lawsuit. Wait till you hear the specifics of some of these allegations, and we'll try to figure out what they mean. Plus, coming up next hour. In Boise, Idaho, get ready for the next really big case on Court TV, the death penalty trial of the doomsday prophet Chad Daybell. Daybell implicated in the murder of his wife, Tammy, and his new wife, Lori's 2 children. Did this adulterous relationship lead to murder?
Were they in the house?
No, 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 property.
Are they seizing stuff?
A Michigan mother accused of killing her husband and then fleeing the country.
The defendant was extradited from Italy.
His charred remains found in a box in a blueberry patch.
The defendant could be punished with life without parole.
2 people have been convicted in this case.
Was Beverly McCallum running away from a criminal past?
Now it's up to a jury to decide.
The Fugitive Wife Murder Trial. Live coverage weekday mornings, 8, 7 Central on Court TV.
I run. Yeah, you do. Yeah. Lil Rod ain't worth giving his kingdom to if we don't control his publishing. I can solve his efforts with 3 other human beings. He's eating at our table, and I like his backstory, but you need to have other people. It's hard to work with him unless we have his pub. He's a piece of human, but we do not need his talent unless we can work with him.
That's from the Instagram account of Rodney Johnson called Lil Rod Made It. Little discrepancy about payment for money for work done, musical work done by Lil Rod for and with Diddy Combs. But now things are much different. It's not about publishing. It's not about royalties. It's not about being paid for that. He's filed a civil lawsuit. And in this civil lawsuit, he has made allegations. We're going to go through some of them, and they are relatively graphic, to say the least. Here's one of them. Mr. Jones was sexually harassed and assaulted by Mr. Combs throughout his time living with Mr. Combs. Mr. Jones was the victim of constant unsolicited and unauthorized groping and touching of his anus by Mr. Combs. In addition to the unsolicited and unauthorized touching, Mr. Jones was forced by Mr. Combs to work in Mr. Combs' bathroom as Mr. Combs walked around naked and showered in a clear glass enclosure. We've got a bunch of these. That's the first one. Let's bring in some guests, though. We're going to help work through this from a couple different perspectives. Joining me in Los Angeles, board-certified forensic psychiatrist, trial expert, witness, and columnist, Dr. Carol Lieberman. And in New York City, president of Reputation Doctor LLC, Mike Paul is with us. All right. Mike, I want to start with you because let's say that, the civil case, settles, goes away. We never hear anything again about it. This raid happens and there's never any criminal charges. But all this stuff is played out. What happens to Diddy and his reputation? Does he get it back? Can he ever be where he, I guess, once was? What happens here?
Well, that's an excellent question, and it also shows the huge difference between the court of law and the court of public opinion. What we think right now matters. In the court of public opinion, we have a verdict every minute of every day. We can twist, we can turn based on new information. But to answer your question, I think the consistency of a message over time, like a negative brand campaign, will impact us. I think the more important question is, how long will these allegations be in the news? How long will these allegations be word of mouth? How long will these allegations be in the world of social media, which is as important, and some even believe more important than traditional media these days, for people to have it seared in their mind, which is what branding is all about.
Now, Dr. Carol Lieberman, I'm going to read another one of these allegations. And again, these are like all over the place. It's really very different behavior. This one goes back to Thanksgiving of 2022. While using the restroom, young Miami's cousin burst into the bathroom and began groping Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones believes that Mr. Combs sent her in there to sexually assault Mr. Jones. According to Mr. Jones, as she entered the bathroom, she dropped to her knees and began performing oral sex on Mr. Jones' exposed private parts. Mr. Jones pushed her away and exited the bathroom. So on the one hand, you know, with Mike Paul, I was like, well, what if all this goes away, nothing happens? Now, on the other hand here, Dr. Carol Lieberman, if in fact these allegations are true, what does it tell us about the person who would do what is alleged in the walking around the bathroom and touching the other man's bottom parts and sending someone else in to perform an act? What type of person, what kind of mind does that? What would motivate someone to act that way?
Well, you know, Sean Combs, Diddy, he has all these names, you know, Puff Daddy, Sean Diddy Combs, all this. Anyway, we're talking about that man. You know, it's not a surprise. I mean, we know that he has been using drugs for a long time. A lot of these allegations, actually from the women, go back for many years. Even it's not clear to me how many years these allegations are, but I mean, in other words, it's not like it just happened yesterday.
Well, so the last one, though, the one where he's alleged to have sent someone in to assault him is from Thanksgiving of 22. So that's pretty recent.
Okay, yes. But I mean, but there's a history of it. In other words, there's consistent behavior, consistent sexual behavior, sexual abuse, drugs, and so that kind of makes it more believable that it's not just one person claiming outrageous things, it's several people, and they're claiming basically similar things. Now, the part about where he's claiming that this woman was sent in to do this sex act on him, and he also talks about another sex act. He was saying that Diddy was giving him off to Cuba Gooding, and he locked him in a room. You know, and that was because he was purposely moving him over, turning him off, you know, moving him on. Not like, in other words, he was giving Cuba Gooding his remains. You know, he wasn't interested in anymore. I think it's harder to prove that he did something that caused somebody else, whether it was the woman or Cuba or Cuba Gooding, that they were involved. That they were somehow made to do something. That, I think, is harder to prove.
Now, I want to read another of these allegations. According to Mr. Jones, he was transported from California to New York, Florida, St. Bart's, and the United States Virgin Islands throughout his time with Mr. Combs. According to Mr. Jones, during this time, Mr. Jones was forced to solicit sex workers and perform sex acts to the pleasure of Mr. Combs. On or about February 4th, 2023. So this is just like recently. Mr. Combs forced Mr. Jones to bring prostitutes and sex workers back to his home in Miami, Florida. Mike Paul, Diddy's been silent so far on this, right? After the last lawsuit, he posted something, but he said nothing. Hasn't really shown himself publicly. Should he? Should he? Could he set the record straight? Could he convince the public at this point?
Well, before I answer that, I want to comment on something that's obvious that we really haven't discussed, which is for many years, Diddy's reputation was being a womanizer. Now we've added to that, not just a womanizer, but potentially those that are less than legal, under the age of 18. Now, with the flurry that we've had this year, some knew this, but certainly more around the world are learning this. It appears he is either bisexual or interested in both men and women or boys and girls, allegedly. If that is true, and continuing on from your first question, that alone is going to keep this story in the minds of others as deep as the R. Kelly stories that we knew from the world of hip-hop. Whether he is found guilty in the court of law or not, it's going to be difficult for him to go back with some fans who are learning this information about both males and females, boys and girls, allegedly, and him being in the midst of it. That alone, in the hip-hop community, in the black community, in communities all over the world, is a huge change from the branding that we had, even recently with his new album coming out, even recently with him winning awards, even recently with him getting the key to the city of New York from the mayor of the city of New York. All of those people have to think about their reputations as well. Diddy's kids have to think about their reputations, but I think there's another huge thing that we could see happening with these cases. Now we're talking about sex workers. We have other stories, including those in politics, that have sex workers. They see that there's an opportunity on their truth for them to come out and be seen as better than just sex workers. That could potentially happen in this case. We have a drug mule who sadly has the same last name as me. When I saw it, I said, not my relative. He also is very close to Diddy. The feds did that on purpose. If he were in rooms and on trips to various places with both guns and sex trafficking, Diddy could be in very big trouble. And we know that this is something that the feds always do. I used to work for a U.S. senator. I'm very close to those that are in the federal government that are involved in investigations still over all these years. I've gotten some tips about this case already that people were texting me just before I came on. There's a lot of information. People are flipping. It's not all out yet. They have a lot more than we've learned about to date. And the tentacles are going to continue to spread, and that's how the feds do what they do. They're using our taxpayers' dollars. They're in no hurry. And when they come in like that, that means they have a lot, and they're seeking a lot more and seeking to flip it.
One more I want to put up here of these allegations from this civil lawsuit again. According to Mr. Jones, during the introduction, Mr. Combs suggested that Cuba get to know Mr. Jones better. He then left them alone in a makeshift studio on the yacht. Cuba Gooding Jr. began touching, groping, and fondling Mr. Jones's legs, his upper inner thighs, near his groin, the small of his back, near his buttocks, and his shoulders. He rejected his advances, and Mr. Gooding Jr. did not stop until Mr. Jones forcibly pushed him away. It's happening, the allegations here, it's happening on a yacht, Dr. Carol Lieberman. Just put us in the mindset on how and why something like this could happen if it's true. All the allegations have been denied, but if this was true, like how does someone come up with this idea? Let's go out on the yacht, and then this is what we're going to do.
Yes, this is what I was referring to before, that it's a little harder to prove something like that in fact it was on purpose that Mr. Combs left them both in the room. you know, and also with all these drugs that everybody's taking who are associated with these people, you know, with all these drugs, a lot of paranoia could be going on. So it's going to be very tricky to separate out the allegations from paranoid projections, you know, that these people are claiming. Some of the allegations are going to be easier to prove. Well, I mean, if they did, allegedly, if they did happen, but some of them are going to be harder. But, you know, I just want to say something about the breadth of the raids. It seems way over the top, because especially since Mr. Combs wasn't even arrested. Why did they have to make such a big show? And apparently the media was called to these things also.
Well, I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
So we're all going to be talking about it. I mean, they're doing their own PR at the same time.
Right.
Big thank you. We're out of time for this segment, but obviously, as Mike told us, there's going to be a lot more happening here. So Dr. Carol Lieberman, thank you. Mike Paul, thank you. Great to see you. When we come back, we will be joined by R. Kelly's former attorney, who will give us a look at what the legal road ahead looks like for Diddy.
All right, good morning. We'll go on the record.
That's R&B superstar R. Kelly with his attorney at the time, Steve Greenberg, inside a courtroom in Illinois. R. Kelly had lots of cases across the country, state and federal. And the federal investigation that is taking place of Diddy is out of New York, like the federal investigation of R. Kelly. So we want to get some insight into what may be happening here. Special guest joining us from Chicago, the attorney who represented R. Kelly, Steve Greenberg. Steve, great to see you tonight. Thanks so much for joining us.
How are you, Vinny? Long time no see.
Yeah, been a while. 0 to 10, how concerned should Diddy be? How serious is what's happening right now?
12. This is far more concerning than what R. Kelly was facing. And look, it did not end very well for R. Kelly. The allegations against Diddy involve, you know, R. Kelly's case was a couple of women. It didn't involve bringing sex workers. It didn't involve the allegations of coast-to-coast things. It didn't involve importing women from out of the country. Already what's been leaked is far more salacious than the R. Kelly allegations. It didn't involve drug use. It sounds like there's allegations of violence, perhaps weapons involved. It sounds far more vast. The R. Kelly situation involved really one person, which is why we always felt and continue to feel, and it's an issue on appeal, that it was an overreach by the federal government because they brought a RICO, an enterprise action against a single person. It sounds like in Diddy's case, there might actually be an enterprise that was operating, a sex enterprise. And it sounds like in Diddy's case, from the last segment you had, there might be other people involved, other celebrities involved, other music executives involved, other members of his family, other employees involved and willingly involved. So it seems like a far more encompassing case.
So are they following a similar roadmap to what they did with R. Kelly, which, you know, resulted in the RICO charges here? And where does the evidence come from for prosecutors here? Are they going to try to flip people? Do they need accusers to come forward? Do they need underage accusers who will be willing to testify?
So let's talk about what they did a couple of days ago. They very publicly raided 2 of his homes. And obviously, any raid is a public thing. Usually the feds wait until almost the last minute to do those kinds of raids in their investigation. They need to get enough information to go to a judge and get a search warrant. That means they've already got witnesses. That means they've already got some evidence, at least enough evidence to convince a judge that there have been violations of federal law. Once they get those search warrants and the public knows, especially when they're dealing with someone like Diddy, they better have pretty good proof. Now Diddy knows what's going on. Now everyone else knows what's going on. What's the point of that? They want these other people who were involved to be calling them and going, oh my God, I'm scared to death. I will tell you everything. Please don't come knocking on my door. I will flip. What do you want to know? And that's the purpose.
We have about a minute left here. Could this be defensible if they do come forward with charges and are able to build the type of case you're describing?
Look, any case is defensible because you don't know what all the evidence is. And you have to see that. So any case is defensible. The feds don't mess around. It sounds like there's a lot of people. You have to wonder, why have all of these people waited so long? Why are they all piling on now? The first case, there was a very quick settlement. Is this just a money grab? This is a fabulously wealthy person. So there are reasons why people might be making these allegations, but there's also, I've read that there's video. If there's video confirming the allegations, then it's gonna be very hard to defend.
Steve Greenberg, the case is just beginning, so hopefully you'll come back and we'll continue to talk about all the developments. Great to see you, my friend.